Monday Night Football is upon us, and this time it's just a single header. We got the Seahawks and the Giants live from New York once again. No Taylor Swift in this one, so I don't know how we're possibly going to watch it, but of course, we're going to talk about this game today, build some lineups today. We're going to hand build one, going to optimize some, and we're going to hop into the simulations and see what they're telling us. Who are the best plays on tonight's Monday Night Football game? Of course, there's 24.3 implied points for Seattle, 22.8 for the Giants, and let's start it out as we always do here with the hand build. You can see I've got the huddle here, single entry on a little bit of a hand build hot streak on the stream. I don't know if you guys noticed, but Justin Field stacks on the Friday video doing a fantasy football gauntlet paid off for us. So let's see what we do today. First, taking shouts to the chat as always. I appreciate you guys. Copper prices the many times over. Man going to Miami for underdog for the Fantasy Football World Championship. Shout out him. Justin here. I feel like I shouldn't have led with copper prices. I should have put him last so that everybody else had some luminary things to themselves. Sue Consigliere, shouts to the Squirt Squad. Shouts to all you guys hanging out here. Of course, this is live, but hopefully it'll keep holding up throughout the course of the day. Main injury item to talk about is Saquon Barkley. He's projected to be doubtful. I don't expect a miracle recovery for him this week like we have seen throughout, of course, the main slate this weekend. Some guys were expected to be playing. They got ruled out. Some guys expected to be ruled out, ended up playing. So this week, I do think we're going to be safely here with no Saquon Barkley for this one. So we have to assume Matt Breida going to get the majority of the workload. Eric Gray probably not mixing in very much. Gary Brightwell, we saw last time that there was no Saquon, played a lot of the third down, long distance kind of plays. Maybe he has some use as well, but we're going to hand build first. So let's see what we do. And right away, I got to go to the guy in the thumbnail. I do think this is a Darren Waller spot. I think this is really overall a pretty big Giants spot. I do expect them to be able to rebound with a really bad start to the passing game on the year. Daniel Jones, not great doing anything. Negative 0.32 EPA for pass for him so far in the year. Negative 0.23 EPA per drop back. So a little better when he's dropping back and running the ball than he is obviously just dropping back to pass. Daniel Jones, the top running back. You can make that case here. So the question becomes, Daniel Jones at captain, $9,600 salary for him, or the guy we can go to a captain, I think it saves some money, Darren Waller. I think this is the first good game of the year for Darren Waller coming up here. He's got 6.7 intended touches per game. The weakness for Seattle overall is going to be really coming out of the slot. He's the most targeted player coming out of the slot. It is a 0.52 EPA allowed out of the slot for Seattle overall. Waller on the year, 11 targets, which is about double the next most guy, Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson. Of course, that doesn't mean that it's just Darius Slayton that benefits, or assuming that it's just Darren Waller that benefits. You can see Wan'Dale Robinson, if his routes increase, he could certainly have a big day too. But I think for me, going with Waller here as a captain feels a little bit safer, a little more secure workload, a little more opportunity. And Seattle, too, also bad at defending tight end routes, 0.3 EPA allowed to tight end routes. The Waller, surprisingly, only targeted 5 times as an actual tight end so far this year. But I'm going to start the build with Waller. I think Daniel Jones, another guy you can definitely go to as captain. I am sure I'll have a lot of them. Daniel Jones double stacks, Daniel Jones triple stacks, I think are one way to get unique on this showdown slate tonight on DraftKings. But Jones, to me, I think if you're in a redraft league and somehow, I guess, you have Geno and Daniel Jones, I'd play Daniel Jones tonight. I think he's going to be able to get running as well. 0.3 EPA allowed per QB rush for the Seattle defense. So we're now talking positive pass game matchup where Seattle is just bad everywhere. We've talked about it a lot of times. Seattle is one of those teams. Denver's the one you're going to want to attack the most right now. The worst team defensively across a lot of different metrics out there. Seattle, though, right there with them. They're not quite Denver, but they are similarly bad. 0.13 EPA per drop back allowed, 0.14 EPA per pass. These are not good numbers. 0.93 on deep shots, 20-plus air yards. So maybe somebody can get loose at Darius Slayton or Jalen Hyatt here, but also a 0.13 EPA allowed. Positive EPAs everywhere. That is a sign for a defense that you want to attack. So Daniel Jones, viable as captain. I'm just putting him here in the flex for the sake of my particular team. Benched Waller from Musgrave in my home league. That's just running bad. So shout out to Nat K for running bad here. It happens to all of us, but yeah, concussion from Musgrave on Thursday night, not the best one. But you know, that's going to happen sometimes. The Waller spot though, again, anytime you have a guy coming up, they're playing Seattle, I would just lock and load them. Seattle, Denver, just those two I think really stand out. But for what it's worth, the Giants pass defense is worse on paper. 0.23 EPA allowed per dropback, 0.24 EPA per pass. Better at defending the deep ball, only a 3% deep ball rate, which is pretty low, and a negative 0.25 EPA on deep plays. So maybe not quite as much of a DK Metcalf get downfield, get going game. I don't like to hold DK Metcalf, guys like that who are really strong, really good boundary receivers to the same standards of the rest of the league. That said, it doesn't feel like a spot you necessarily want to attack going against this Giants D downfield, but they are going to get strafed underneath a 0.32 EPA per target and 20 air yards or less throws. So maybe JSN gets going here. Probably not the most likely. Tyler Lockett could certainly get going. He does have a slightly lower ADOT than DK Metcalf does in the year. Metcalf has a 14 ADOT. Tyler Lockett 11.6. And JSN at a 2.3 ADOT. So Maybe check downs coming his way. Maybe some more Kenneth Walker pass game work. I do think Walker's the one that stands out the most, though, and I'm going to put him in right away. Tough price tag at 10.8 here on DraftKings. He's getting 4.7 red zone touches per game, 2.3 of those inside the 5-yard line per game. That is really good work for Kenneth Walker, and that was really my big concern, was that I do think Charbonnet is going to be a more efficient back over the course of time, but Walker has fought off everything. He's got a 0.18 EPA per rush this year, 0.1 EPA per pass. So everything's looking good for him overall in terms of how he's playing. So Walker, the guy who's going to hold down the role. Charbonnet is still leverage against him. Last week, the snap counts got closer to a 50-50 split. That was largely due to the blowout, or largely due to the game getting out of hand. We still are seeing some Charbonnet on third downs. That's not great for Walker, but I still think Walker is the play to go to. The Seahawks beat them up with a low A dot. They'll create 1-versus-1 or one-on-one coverage for DK, though. Certainly possible. I do think that a lot of the things when you prevent deep balls well, or if you give them up pretty easily, that is sort of a schematic thing, and it's not necessarily about drawing attention underneath. It's just that they'd rather give you underneath throws and get beaten deep. So the Eagles, certainly one team that have coined that as being part of their approach. But I think in this spot, to me, the Giants D has shown enough of a limiting of the deep throws as well as actual success against them that I don't expect this to be a spot where you see Jalen Hyatt go off for, let's say, 5 plays, or DK going off for 5 plays. Like, I don't think that's necessarily the case, but your mileage may vary. It's a showdown. Anything can happen. Hopefully Musgrave. Yeah, we can talk about Musgrave at a different time, but hopefully Musgrave can get back to playing. We'll see, though. Concussions, again, proven once again that if you do get ruled out of a game with concussion, not playing the next week, that has been the case for every player who's got a concussion so far, including Jimmy G, who actually had some limited practices this week. So I wouldn't expect Musgrave to be back in next week, because it just seems like the NFL's quietly changed the ruling around that stuff. Rest of the players that we need to get in here. I do think Matt Breida is in a perfectly fine spot. Seattle's defense giving up a 0.32 EPA per red zone rush. Does feel like Breida has to get that work if they get there. Obviously, Daniel Jones can siphon some of that away. But I think Breida, to me, I'm intrigued by a 4-2 Giants build here. I don't know. We'll run the optimizer. I don't think 4-2 Giants builds are going to come up that much. If I had to guess, it's going to be 4-2 Seattle or 3-3 builds coming up the most. But we'll see, obviously, when we get to the simulation and the optimizer coming up in a little bit. I don't think you need to play Geno here. I think Geno's certainly a valid play. Again, a really good matchup for him. Geno still makes sense, though. We have enough salary, maybe. Let's put Geno in. I'm not really correlating for the pass game here, though. So maybe Geno not the wisest move. Fuck it, let's do JSN. JSN, we talked about the low A dot targets. I think this is something where maybe he can pile them up. The usage is not great for him, only 34 snaps per game, 22.7 routes per game, which is 10 less than Tyler Lockett, 8 less than DK Metcalf. But JSN's involved enough. Maybe he can get some easy PPR points. I don't hate JSN here, but let's keep him in for now. Let's keep him in for now. Who would we put then otherwise? Slayton works, I think. I do expect Slayton to have some success downfield. Does it put us on a 4-2? Something here is missing. Like, I kind of think a Wandale. What's Wandale's price? Wandale's $3K. We put Jones at captain. I don't normally flip around this much. I'm going to see what Jones at captain looks like with Waller in the flex. And maybe we just run a 5-1. Take out JSN. No, that's not great either. I guess you could get Lockett in this one, which wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Take out Breida. No, I think Breida gets there. Sorry, this is I'm laboring of a hand build lineup that I normally would do here, but I just don't like this 8,400 left. I guess we could still get contrarian and pay down for JSN, or we could just take Lockett. Let's just take Lockett. I think this might be chalkier than it should be. But the team that I built here, Daniel Jones at captain, Darren Waller, Kenneth Walker, Matt Breida, Tyler Lockett, Wandale Robinson. That is going to be my hand build. But it feels a little chalkier than I would like. But I'm going to submit it anyway. This is what feels right to me. We're getting the Daniel Jones multiple man stack. I think that's going to be a little more contrarian just because, again, Seattle, I think the higher over-under team, higher implied total team, a team that people like more. The Giants have not shown much this year. So I really think for me, leaning into the Giants is going to be something I definitely want to do across the entire slate. It is chalky, but very similar first build. Well, great minds think alike. And Ross, you are a great mind. Good representation of the hand builder's lament. Definitely a labor of love. Yes. It is a labor of love always here on Splash Play. And of course, we're going to show you the projections now on Stochastic, but I'm going to quickly pander, guys. Please subscribe down below. Please hit the like button. Please leave a comment. Of course, doing these videos for every Monday and Thursday, the Fantasy Football Gauntlet on Fridays. Tomorrow, Best Ball Review. Wednesday, the laborious, the hours-long Spags rankings, which has been a helpful process for me and hopefully for some of you guys as well. That's what goes on here on Splash Play. Monday to Friday, 11 a.m. here. That's what we grind here with your old pal Spags. All right, top projected players. So I guess Daniel Jones is the top projected player overall, so he might not be coming as a surprise. Could definitely see some captain ownership coming his way. But Jones, the top projected player overall. Geno Smith not far behind, though still 1 fantasy point. So you'd expect to see more Daniel Jones going, especially with Geno being higher priced. Might make Geno more of an interesting GPP play because the salary is not great. Projection is going to be a little bit worse due to the lacking rushing upside. So Geno captains with triple stacks might be something we go to that's a little more contrarian than it might seem. DK Metcalf, highly projected. Kenneth Walker, highly projected. Tyler Lockett, highly projected. So Seattle, really highly projected here by Stochastic. Top value plays. Daniel Bellinger, 12.7x value at a 2.5 projection, $200 salary. Bellinger gets some routes too. And as we talk about sometimes, Darren Waller is the most likely beneficiary because he gets the most targets as a tight end, playing out of the slot, playing out wide. That said, Bellinger is still a tight end who gets some similar routes. So Bellinger could benefit just as much as Darren Waller can. You just expect Waller to benefit more because of the crush of having more targets, having more opportunity. Bellinger just gets less opportunity per game. Jake Bobo, I probably wouldn't chase that, though. He is kind of in the mix. Felt like he got that touchdown last week because the game was getting a little bit out of hand. Bobo, though, very solid player out of UCLA. Grades out well according to all the metrics I look at. Of course, expected points added. The EPA number is the one that I swear by. DJ Dallas, another value here. Will Dissly, another value. Colby Parkinson, another value. And if Dissly and Parkinson are both in along with Noah Fant, that does mean that we could see potentially less JSN, could see more 12 personnel with multiple tight ends. So JSN, I think a flimsy play, but one that I'm still going to get some exposure to. Absolutely. Let's copy this. We'll put it over in a Fantasy Cruncher in a moment. Here's the ownership by Stochastic. Of course, this is going to move around throughout the day. For my ownership projections, I do blend ETRs and Stochastics together when I run my final simulations. So just something to keep in mind there for the sake of full disclosure. We got Daniel Jones projected to be the top owned player overall, 75% ownership, along with 16% at captain. Geno Smith, 67% ownership, 14% at captain. DK Metcalf, 54% ownership, 14% at captain. So the lower owned guys that you could play at captain would be Lockett, Walker, Waller. So Waller, okay. I guess that would have been more contrarian there. So I talked myself out of a more contrarian build, which is never my favorite thing. Breida, Slayton, here are some guys you can go to. Overall ownership under 10%. Colby Parkinson, Jalen Hyatt. Just takes Hyatt one play. I'll say that again, though. The one play very elusive in a lot of these games recently. The Niners game in particular really thought that he would get out there, get some run. Hyatt did not get the run that he deserves to get, I think, but still in the mix, obviously. I think hurt, though, by having Wandale back in the mix. That's because it's less routes to go around, and these guys were already getting pretty thin on routes. And a guy like Sterling Shepard, too, barely played any routes, and he is projecting here at 0.1% ownership. And I got to tell you, I played him a lot in that Niners showdown day. Did not love it, and I will say I'm not likely to go back there unless the Sims really push him my way. Check the chat real fast. What about a Kenneth Walker captain with Charbonnet and utility as an interesting game script build? I don't mind it. I don't think that's a crazy one to go to. A little bit less inclined to go to running backs as captain overall. Obviously, we saw that hit yesterday with Isaiah Pacheco, but that to me just means even more so that running backs a little bit tougher to get there in terms of the pure correlation where you want to have your things stacked up, where pass catcher, captain, the QB is likely to be at the lineup. If you have a QB at captain, you have to then put in 3 pass catchers or so, a running back and 2 pass catchers in your utility. Cutting the parlay is a big thing for me, and a running back at captain doesn't really cut the parlay. Colby Parkinson is going to be KG's guy here. So that's a unique one. Again, I think there's a lot of ways to go here for cheap guys to get yourself different. Wandale stands out at his salary, but a couple $200 guys projecting well. Bellinger, a couple of the other ones we talked about, DJ Dallas. Maybe there's some way for them to get there. Let's upload our projections in, and let's see what the unencumbered crunch gives us on Fantasy Cruncher. Of course, what we're going to do here is run 25 crunches just off of 25 lineups just off of these pure projections, and we'll see what it gives us. That tells you basically what the math is going to tell most people to do from the jump. And you can see the math, again, putting Daniel Jones at captain. So I really did. I just was a chalk donkey. I had a contrarian build, and I walked myself into a more duped ones. That's not what you want to do showdown wise. Bad process by me. So learn from my mistakes and don't do that. Keep yourselves a little bit less owned at captain. But here's the chalk lineup here, the cash lineup you can play tonight if you are playing cash games on Monday night showdowns, which means you are a true sicko, and I support you for that. Daniel Jones at captain, Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, Darren Waller, Matt Breida, Paris Campbell still involved enough too. A lot of guys involved for the Giants side, which makes me think there is a shot this one could not be a chop tonight. So we've seen a lot of these showdowns recently where you're seeing 150 guys. Our pal Al Zeidenfeld, always part of these 150-man trains, taking down 5 to 10K or something. I try to build where you're winning the most if you do get things right. So I'm not trying to build teams that are part of trains. I do think that the Giants just trying to get different configurations at receiver will give you a chance to not be part of these gigantic lineup trains that chop the pot 100 different ways. So that's up to your style of play. But for me, if I'm putting in 30 entries tonight at $20 each, I want a shot to win $1 million. And that's sort of what we're trying to push towards. Other things that stand out here on the team stacks tool. So you can see, again, 4 2s coming for both the Seattle side and the Giants side, pretty well used. 10 out of 25 for Seattle, 9 out of 25 for the Giants. So that's not going to be sneaky. 5 1s, though, not coming up at all here. So a 5-1 Giants build with Jones at captain could be unique. I would bring it back with one of the receivers then. I guess you could also use Kenneth Walker, but I think a 5-1 Giants build or a 5-1 Seattle build, both strongly in play because they are not coming up as pure projection plays. And anything else worth noting here? Gino, DK, Daniel Jones at captain. Anybody 100%? Daniel Jones is in every single lineup. So if you fade Daniel Jones, you're probably getting different through that lever as well. DK Metcalf is in 90% of lineups. Gino's in every lineup. You could set a rule if you're just using an optimizer to play only one of Daniel Jones and Geno Smith. That's not the best move, but it is one where projection-wise, these guys are getting into every single lineup. So that's one thing you can do right away. That's how I won my showdown last year, was basically I made an either-or rule for Joe Burrow and T. Higgins. Ended up finishing first there, I think, chopping it 3 ways for 20K for $20. Chopping it 3 ways for $20 would be pretty tough. Chopping it 3 ways for 20K. And it was around this time of year, guys, so I think I'm due. Point being, though, if you just play one of Geno or Daniel Jones, that allows you to get away from all the pockets people that are going to cram them both in no matter what. So that's another thing. So 5-1s on the menu, playing one of Daniel Jones or Geno Smith, another thing that's on the menu. And I think kicker is not coming up very much. So kicker is a little bit undervalued on the slate as well. All right, let's go to the Sims. Let's see if they're going to give us here. Of course, if you're not familiar with the stochastic Sims from this show or in general, what it's going to do here is try to simulate what the overall field's going to look like with 10,000 lineups. Then what it's going to do is have those 10,000 lineups compete against each other 40,000 times. That is what the simulation process on stochastic looks like. Let me check the chat as well. Bought low on Fields. Be interesting to see his rank tomorrow. Broncos D might be historically bad. I mean, it's definitely true, but, Fields is going to have some good days, I think. It's just a matter of letting them throw the ball. Like, that's basically it. He was slinging the ball more than usual, didn't even run the ball. Like, it was 4 passing touchdowns that got him there. So I think we saw a glimmer of what the ceiling is for Justin Fields, but obviously it is, again, worst defense in football. All right, we could see the ownership here. I'm not going to tinker with the difference overall, but you could sort of knock these guys down a little bit, where Daniel Jones coming in a lot more at captain. So we're probably going to, let's regenerate these. That's too much Daniel Jones at captain, which I think is going to skew the results a little bit too much. Basically, that's what I do, though. So if I am using ETR and stochastic projection blended, I'll kind of go a little bit manually up and down on these various guys to try to get them close to what that combined ownership looks like. So that's my simulation process. Obviously, you can try your own, but definitely something here where I would advocate for trying to do as close as you can to match what the field is expected to be. All right, so now we're getting more Daniel Jones in the flex. Just always congested with having a child. I know you guys all warned me about that, but God damn it. All right. So now we're getting less in the field at captain. I might have jumped him too much. All right. One more regeneration here, and we'll go with whatever this gives us now. Shouldn't have tried to tinker. Whenever you try to tinker, things get worse. So that's how it goes. But that is basically what it looks like. What I'll do on a Sunday when I'm building my lineups is I'll kind of manually go up and down on some guys. I had a really tough decision point yesterday where hero me, I'll tell you guys, won $6 in that slate yesterday while playing just shy of $1,000 on that one. So really feeling great. And I wanted to do the hero ball move of not playing Keenan Allen and maybe not playing Kyren Williams, and instead played the both of them. Kyren worked out. Keenan Allen did not work out at all. So that is where I'm at today, where it's just like, fuck, man. Like I'm having a hard time discerning what good chalk is from bad chalk lately. That has been a pain point for me in some of these builds. But for Showdown, it's not even about good chalk and bad chalk. It's just about how you build unique lineups. So it takes a little bit more of the guesswork away as opposed to a main slate where you're like, oh, Keenan Allen, like, how is he not going to smash? It's such a great spot. And then he puts up 12 points. It's one of those things for a showdown where it's just like you play ugly players, you play the Sterling Shepherds. It's just about giving yourself a chance to not split a pot 100 different ways. That's what I think the biggest thing you do for playing showdown is. My biggest catch is for 50 cents, so I feel your pain. I built some really fucking sick lineups, man. I had a 205 on one lineup with Keenan Allen and what's his face, Josh Palmer. So I felt really good about my teams yesterday. It's just like, just didn't come together enough, and that's sometimes how it goes. Highest ROI lineup here is going to be Geno Smith, DK Metcalf, Darren Waller, Kenneth Walker, Tyler Lockett, Will Disley. This column over here is going to be your simulated ROI. If you were going to play a cash game lineup off the Sims, which I would advocate for even more than Fantasy Cruncher, top cashing lineup, Daniel Jones, DK Metcalf, Darren Waller, Geno Smith, Matt Breida, Paris Campbell. So top cashing lineup actually was the same as a Fantasy Cruncher top projected lineup. So there you go with that one. Highest exposures, at least on 150 lineups. See what we're getting here. Getting a lot of Geno at the flex, a lot of DK Metcalf, a lot of Daniel Jones at the flex. Who's going to be the highest owned captain? A lot of Daniel Jones captain. So it is saying, despite the chalk ownership for Daniel Jones, that we should be about 3x the field on Daniel Jones, which I agree with. I think Daniel Jones really is one of the guys that has the slate-breaking ceiling. I think Geno has one if all of his pass catchers go off. But I think Daniel Jones, to me, looks like a better play. But these guys both really well represented here. So it's a day where they're not trying to push you on the less chalky captains. Which, let's see. Who would be a less chalky captain? Jason Myers, don't think we want to play him. Seahawks D, don't really want to play a defensive captain for the most part. People always get caught into that trap. Usually a waste of money. Darius Slayton at captain. I'd be curious about that. Darren Waller, only 5% in captain coming up. I'm still curious about that one. So the obvious play is Daniel Jones. Let's look at what some Daniel Jones captain lineups look like. We'll see if we can get any with a better ROI overall. Also, wait a minute. Oh, you know what? Fuck. I might have fucked up the filtering. Hold on. Let's redo this. Favorite top 150. Okay. Back to exposures. Yeah, even more Daniel Jones a captain. So Daniel Jones captain, the simulation play of the day. Geno, number 2. This is a pretty big gulf, by the way. 52% exposure for Daniel Jones at captain, 12% for Geno. So the Sims are definitely pushing you towards Daniel Jones at captain. I get the logic. I think I would play that much Daniel Jones, but I think then with the other portion of lineups, you should be getting a good amount of his pass catchers with him. So that means Waller. That means Slayton. That means even Matt Breida, I think. That means Wandale. I think playing those guys at captain is going to give you the way to kind of try to capture Daniel Jones in the lineups where you're not playing at captain, but still get some upside, some way to get different here. Because Daniel Jones, as we saw, he's not sneaking up on anybody. He's coming up on the optimizer. I hand-built him in at captain. The Sims are pushing us there. So everything is pushing you towards Daniel Jones being the captain play. That means you're going to win the most money by going to lineups where you don't have Daniel Jones at captain. So it's a tough balance to strike because I think that Daniel Jones is the best play captain. That said, the way that you're going to win the money is probably not going to be playing him at captain unless you're getting very unique lineups. What would be a unique lineup here? I don't even know. I feel like it would just be like plugging in who are 10% owned guys. So it would be Jalen Hyatt. Is there a good Jalen Hyatt lineup? Maybe a good Hodgins lineup. Let's look up Hyatt. All right, highest simulated ROI for a Hyatt lineup is this one, 166% ROI. Daniel Jones, DK Metcalf, Darius Slayton, Darren Waller, Geno Smith, Jalen Hyatt. So you're getting both QBs in there. You are getting the triple stack with Daniel Jones, and you're getting a low-owned guy in Hyatt. This is the kind of lineup that I think would work for a Jones captain build. Let's look at one with Wandale. Jones, DK Metcalf, Darius Slayton, Darren Waller, Kenneth Walker, Wandale Robinson, 416% ROI. That one looks pretty good. Salary, you're leaving $800 on the table, so maybe you could leave a little more salary. This is what the process looks like, guys. Just identify a few guys then. So we now know what the Sims want us to do. We then can try to get different off of that. That's how I think you can win tonight's slate. And this is one, too, where mixing in a defense probably gets your ownership product down. I think you're looking for a turnover on defense, basically. But I don't expect like there to be 2 defenses in the lineup. I don't even really expect there to be a kicker necessarily in the lineup, though. It can happen because these teams are going to be able to move the ball pretty efficiently. So kicker in the lineup, I think, if it's going to be low owned, looks like a pretty good play. But I think you can get there and get unique enough by just Jones triples, Jones quadruple, maybe with one Seattle player coming back. I think that's pretty good. This game's probably going to shoot out. I agree. Go full sicko and put Shepard at captain. No. I can tell you, man, I would not play much Shepard. I think the routes for him, where's he at in these numbers? Because I was watching that game, man, and he wasn't even on the field, and it was driving me nuts because I was like, I just needed Sterling Shepard to put up, I think, 3 points to really make a big jump on the field, and he was just not out there. He was just not doing shit. He's at 8.7 snaps per game, 5.3 routes, and that's trending downward. I don't think Sterling Shepard is a play worth getting off. Of course, this is going to be the day he goes off because that's always fucking how it is in fantasy football. Of course, you can play these lineups straight away if you want. Of course, throughout the course of the day, though, these lineups are going to move around quite a bit, so keep that in mind. But if you want to play them, here you go. You can scroll through, pause the screen. Here's some good lineups to get. But again, projections move, Vegas totals move, ownership projections move. That's what affects the overall pie. My 3 takeaways, let's do them. 3 takeaways. I think... Don't be afraid of Giants pass catchers has to be number 1 just because of how much captain ownership is going Daniel Jones's way. I feel naked not holding the football. Just because of how much ownership is going Daniel Jones's way, I think getting one of his pass catchers and hoping that they can hit the nuts while Jones still has a useful day would be a good thing to do. So I'll say that is number 1. Daniel Jones, going to be a great captain play. The way to probably win the money, though, is to get different from him or to get really different with him at captain. So that means triple stacks. That means quadruple stacks. That means him being as part of a 5-1 build, all that. Number 2, if you want to go for the gusto right away, just play one of Daniel Jones and Geno Smith. These guys are popping up in every single lineup. They both can definitely make it there. For Geno in particular, though, it's entirely possible that he gets beaten by multiple of his pass catchers or a pass catcher and Kenneth Walker, just because of the fact that Geno is not running that much this year. Maybe that increases. He is still mostly a pretty solid runner, but he's definitely a player where he's going to get most of his value from creating value from the pass catchers around him. So it's entirely possible he puts up a 19-point day while DK Metcalf puts up 20, while Tyler Lockett puts up 19, while, I don't know, JSN, can he put up that much? Maybe. One of the tight ends. Like, there's a lot of ways that Geno just doesn't do enough at his salary to get there. So I would say isolating Daniel Jones from Geno Smith would be another way to build pure lineups right away. And number 3 would be, I mean, I think it's the 5-1 stuff, but I feel like we've kind of covered that. I think it's still being willing to play kickers. These are 2 teams that should be able to move the ball pretty well. And kickers are not coming up as too well projected. So I don't really have a lean on which kicker to play. I guess if I were to choose one, I guess it would be Seattle's kicker. Yeah, I guess it'd be Seattle's kicker, but I don't really feel that strongly. Jason Myers, I think, is the kicker. I don't love that much. Like, it's just either kicker. Both guys are underrepresented, and this is a game where these guys should just be in field position. If the drive steams out at, let's say, the 30-yard line, you could quickly see a kicker make enough to get into a lineup. So I think playing kickers there, those would be your 3 takeaways. So anything else in chat? What if Jones gets all his points rushing? I think, he certainly can. He's still dropping back enough to pass, though, that I think there's opportunity for him to pass. Like, he's got 32 pass attempts per game. I just wouldn't assume that's the case. But if he does get there via just rushing, obviously him at captain would work. But the way you get things right is going to be like him at captain and you're correlating with him. And I don't think that just putting him at captain and putting a bunch of Seahawks, like, that doesn't pay off that often. Daniel Jones is the kind of player where it can, so I don't want to fully throw it out the window. But I think if you had like a 1-5 with Daniel Jones and no other Giants, I think that's unique, but I don't think it's the right way to play Showdown, if that makes sense. Ray called the fade CMC this year, Bozo. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, Justin Jefferson's really killing me. That's really what he put up a 50-point game. You know who else has put up a 50-point game? Devin A-Chain in the fucking 12th round. Big Lenny, more like big dick face. Get the fuck out of here. Oh, what a brave take. Play CMC. Yeah, CMC is great. It's all about the overall lineup construction. You fucking dumb shit. Anyway, that's enough. Once Big Lenny's coming here, victory lapping CMC, that's a sign this stream needs to end. Follow me at Chris Spags. Follow the show at SplashPlayPod, and come back tomorrow. If you want to talk about CMC, we could do it during the best ball rankings. But shout out all you guys out there, even Big Lenny, who seems like a buffoon. But all of you guys, wish you guys the best of luck tonight. And of course, if I don't take down discernment, I hope you guys do. So please do that, and go visit probably.com as well. Great prop bets going out. And actually, I think I'm going to put together a graphic today on the prop bets that look the best for Monday Night Football. So check that out at Probably App on social media, Twitter first and foremost. But shout out to all you guys hanging out with me, including Big Lenny, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Enjoy your days, and of course, good luck. Bye.